Kia ora bros and girls, welcome back to the channel. So we're back with chapter 3 map 1 of the Immortalis. This month is Cavalier event quest in Marvel Contest of Champions. We've brought in a pretty science heavy team actually, even though it's a cosmic boss. But the lane is all about skill attackers with the martial discipline. So we just brought in Killmonger and Void, who normally do the trick, and then we'll meet up with the boss, who is Icarus. And he's a bit cheeky, but we'll cover him in detail when we get to the boss. Okay, I'll clear the lane and I'll see you there. Alright, so back at the boss, Killmonger cleared most of the lane. Had to use Human Torch there right at the end because I died against Symbiote Supreme. But we're up against Icarus, and Icarus has health, attack, Ragnarok every time you stun him against Fury. Fuel the Fire, every time he gains Fury he becomes unstoppable. He's also immune to bleed, and anytime he's immune, when he's immune to any effect, he gains Fury, right? But that's not all. That's just the beginning. See, he is also immune to Incinerate. He's also immune to Shock. And now he's immune to bleed, so he's immune to a lot of characters. So let's go through this, and then we'll talk about how to fight him. But pretty much you do not want to rely on debuffs, particularly if you're going to rely on debuffs, you don't want to be relying on Bleed, Incinerate or Shock. Now every time the opponent tries to apply an effect that he's immune to, he inflicts energy vulnerability. He's immune to Incinerate, Shock and Poison basically. All his attacks are energy. Medium attack does a power detonation, and if it naturally expires you get energy damage. Basically all that means is you have to launch a special within a certain period of time. Energize, so he gains a lot more power. Incinerate will deal energy damage. Special 1 will give him 3 Incinerate debuffs. Special 2 is all about Incinerate debuffs, and Special 3 Incinerate debuffs and damage. So this is kind of why I brought in Human Torch. But you know what, I'm going to try different strategies. So I brought in these 4, and there's various reasons for that. First of all, with Quake, you wouldn't have to worry too much about any of the debuffs. You would just stun. You don't have to power gain him or anything. You would just stun and evade. With Human Torch, it was all about all his stuff is Incinerate, and that would work in our favor. And if you set in the pre-fight ability, it doesn't count as Incinerate, so he's not immune to it. It's a debuff. It's not even a debuff, right? So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is SheHulk, which relies on pure damage and does not rely on debuffs. So she would be another good option. And of course Void, whose debuffs are passive. So what we'll do is let's start with SheHulk and see how we go. But I have 4 different kind of strategies to deal with this guy because he's pretty nasty, man. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to parry this guy at all, okay? Because if you parry it, he's going to go unstoppable, right? And I might accidentally parry him at some point, but you can see there, he just went unstoppable. So I will just... The other guy who would be quite good for this might be Captain America Infinity War, because so yeah, it's interesting because with She-Hulk I didn't realize you could do that, but yeah, apparently you can kind of, if you got the slow, you can shut off the unstoppable. So probably Captain America Infinity War would work as well. Now let's go ahead and have a crack with Human Torch, right? And we're gonna put the pre-fight ability on, so it's not gonna be what's it called? It's not gonna be an Incinerate debuff. That's not how it's gonna count. It's going to count as it's going to count, yeah, okay, that's pretty nasty. What I meant to say is it's not going to count as a debuff, right? It's going to count as something else. Now let's try Void. Problem is, again, we're going to rely on You don't want to rely on stun. You kind of want to rely on heavy. You can see there he's got the power detonate on us in the top left, that red thing, and that's a problem because if we don't throw a special, then it's GG for us. Now the SP2 is unblockable as well, which is kind of annoying, to be fair. So we're just going to push him here. We're not going to push him to the SP2. We're going to try our best to just evade the SP1 because that's at least a physical attack. So this is how we're going to do that. We can head into his block, that's not a problem. So Void is also Incinerate immune, which kind of helps a little bit. And yeah, Void seems to be working okay, and this is kind of what I was hoping to do with SheHulk, but obviously I kind of miscued and instead got my ass handed to me. But so far Void seems to be doing the trick. Just getting to the cycle of kind of like evading the SP1s. Although he seems to be doing damage even without touching me with the special one, that seems to do some damage. So I don't know what that's all about. Might need to just have a bit of a look. So he deals energy damage, I think, for every energized buff. Okay, so we're almost at the end there, and we've got Quake, who does not have to rely on any of those debuffs, and she doesn't really care if he's unstoppable because we're not even attacking into him. So he can be unstoppable, and that's absolutely fine. And because we're not going to be baiting out his specials, we're not going to be taking all that energy damage. So Quake, still pretty good for something like this. And as you can see, we kind of started out as an absolute mess, and now we're not doing too badly. And I think that should almost be enough to finish him off. There you go. So it's not the best fight in the world. Void went really far. I think SheHulk would have done well. I think Captain America Infinity War would work well, because you can see there when you had the heavy with SheHulk, it actually stopped his unstoppable. So then you can just go through the cycle of baiting out the SP1 and hitting. And I might do a video later on in the month of how you can one-shot this guy with SheHulk, because I think she's a really good option. I also think Void, once I get used to him a little bit, is a good option. So hopefully this helped, guys. Here would be my kind of like summary or my tips. Bait out the SP1. Do not use debuffs against this guy if at least not ones he's immune to, which are Bleed, Incinerate, and Shock. Do not use Doom. You're going to get your ass handed to you. And also don't push him to the SP2, because the SP2 goes unblockable and does Incinerate damage. And even if you're Incinerate immune, it will take a lot of damage. So Void, SheHulk, pretty good go-tos. So is Quake. So is Captain America Infinity War. And hopefully this helps. If it did, like, leave a comment below, subscribe, share it with your team, share it with your alliance. All that stuff helps out, guys. And yeah, as always, I'll see you in the next one. Kaki te ano, bros and girls.